All right, welcome back, everyone. Season 3, Beneath the Helmet. Such a pleasure to have our guest on the air today. We're going to talk about everything firefighter, first responder nutrition, the owner of Rescue RD, a dietitian for Fairfax County Fire and Police. We got Megan Lautz on the air.
It's time to ignite your soul and unlock your full potential. Join us on Beneath the Helmet, the podcast exploring firefighters' health and wellness. Hosted by retired Fire Chief Arjuna George, our podcast is the perfect place to start your journey towards becoming the best version of yourself. So come on, let's join the conversation and find out what sets your soul on fire.
We got Megan Lautz on the air. Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. Such a pleasure. So tell our listener today a little bit about who Megan is and kind of how you, came into the fire service as a civilian and just kind of your path up to now and kind of some of your passions and your life story a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a registered dietitian civilian that specializes in first responders, specifically fire and police. And I have been specializing since about 2017. I got laid off from a corporate wellness job with Northrop Grumman, actually, and fell into a gig as a wellness manager for Montgomery County Public Safety, and just really kind of latched to fire very quickly. I took the CPAT. It took me 3 tries, but I eventually passed it. Did several 24-hour shifts, ride-alongs, that kind of thing. And I think what's really helped me is just really trying to understand the job before I started nagging people to eat their vegetables, though there was a little bit of that, right? Because the first responder career is very unique. Sleep deprivation, exposure to trauma, high stress jobs, and then high expectation jobs as well. So really what I've done is just really tried to understand the job and then apply nutrition to it. So it's been about 8 years now working with firefighters and police officers. So I think I'm starting to get a hang of the language, and that's really what I focus on.
Awesome. So I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on what was the biggest surprise to you about learning about the culture, the fire service, the people, the history. Was there any surprises there coming in as somebody who was not going through the ranks
Yeah.
and such?
And so interestingly enough, like a lot of people think I married a firefighter. I actually did not. I just got this IT guy from high school, so I have no firefighters in my family. I've had to completely teach this to myself entirely. And I think the biggest surprise is a lot of times when you're first getting into working with fire, especially from a civilian standpoint, it's like they're athletes, they're athletes, they're athletes. But you guys are athletes. Don't get me wrong, but they don't necessarily treat their bodies like athletes, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So that was kind of a shift. Yes, we have this pie in the sky. We know what we want people to do from a perfection standpoint, like a perfect day, but the reality of shift work doesn't always allow for that. So what I've found is that I've had to really lower the bar, which firefighters don't like to hear that. But if I don't lower the bar, you're not going to achieve your goals because you're constantly going to feel like, oh, I'm not perfect, so screw it. And how many times do we see that black and white mentality when it comes to fire teams?
Interesting. I just had finished an interview just yesterday, and we talked about tactical athletes
Mhm.
and the phrase around that aspect. I do think we're tactical, industrial, whatever you want to call that. But yeah, we might not have the same mindset as the NFL teams or the NHL
Mhm.
teams, right?
Or
So yeah,
the resources,
or the resources, 100%.
the
Yeah.
resources is the big one. I mean, Fairfax, we're spoiled as anything. We have every resource you could ever want. But that doesn't mean that every first responder is taking advantage of those services, even when they're free. So, yes, the demands of the job are considered tactical. They are considered athletic. But I think a lot of first responders, especially as they get later and later in their careers, they get kind of beat down, and it gets really hard to keep that level of performance physically and mentally.
So give us a little day in the life of a dietitian for the county. What does that look like? Do you
Sure.
meet with people on a
Um,
day-to-day basis, or how does that look?
Yeah. So usually, and it's kind of slowed a little bit since I'm about 8 months postpartum, and that kind of threw everything off. But typically, I usually see about 16 to 20 first responders a week, whether in person or virtually. We have a on-site gym, or at the Hawk Health Clinic. is where I'll see first responders. And that's just like, I want to lose weight, or maybe I need to gain weight to do better in the academy, do better for SWAT tryouts or something like that. So it could be performance-based fueling. A lot of times, though, it's weight loss, some cholesterol management, blood pressure management. I've had a couple cancer treatments, like iodine radiation requires a low iodine diet. So there's a couple different things. It really changes drastically every day. But I also do a lot of station visits, presentations, and then I also do consulting through my side gig. So I'm all over the place all the time. My work-life balance isn't very good, but I'm with the right people for that, I guess.
Love it. Love it. Okay, so let's dive into some nutrition. So,
Mhm,
I think there's definitely some hot topics, like we talked about off air: caffeine, hydration, food, all that kind of stuff.
mhm.
So let's start off with a firefighter's diet of coffee.
Yes. Yes. Well, when you
We live
start the
off
day
that
off with,
stuff.
oh, totally. Listen, and
Yeah,
I'm not dumb.
yeah.
If I wanted to be set on fire, I would tell you guys to cut out coffee entirely, and then, that wouldn't go so well.
That wouldn't go.
Um, no, and really, I go with the FDA recommendation for healthy people, which is under 400 milligrams a day, which is 30 to 40 ounces of coffee total in the day, which I think is reasonable as a civilian. The guys writing 4 to 5 calls after midnight tell me those are rookie numbers. Boo. There's that. Um, of course, energy drinks and like the caffeinated gums, the caffeinated pouches, the drops, all of those things kind of count towards that. But the big thing with, coffee, if it is truly the diet, it can really impact acid reflux, which a lot of first responders don't really think about. Acid reflux and anxiety. So sometimes I will have a firefighter come to me and they're like, my anxiety is actually really high in the morning. And like I have this, like, my stomach hurts. My stomach hurts really bad. And they may or may not report burning coming up their throat. Um, if your stomach is hurting and you don't really know why, you're just drinking coffee first thing in the morning, it's likely related to acid reflux. And what coffee does, or caffeine in general, is it lowers the pressure on the lower esophageal sphincter. So that means you have splashing coming up the esophagus, which could be stomach pain, closer to that entry point, or it could be, burning in the throat, or sore throat first thing in the morning. So if you're having some of those symptoms and you're just drinking coffee first thing in the morning, you're literally pouring acid on acid. We just need to get you to eat something, and maybe delay the coffee a little bit.
Water help? Like if you had a glass of water prior to
Mhm.
coffee, does that neutralize it a bit, or just food is the only option?
Yeah, I would say food, just to kind of
Mhm.
help keep things down a little bit better. But it water might help, delaying it a little bit might help. But a lot of times the challenge with the coffee, or the caffeine in general, is that first responders think caffeine provides energy, where it actually just reduces the feeling of fatigue. And food provides calories, which provides the body energy, or ATP, for the muscles to do the work, or for your brain to do the work. So a lot of times, especially for those early morning workout people, if I get them to do an applesauce pouch, which they always think I'm ridiculous for, it's the trick. An applesauce pouch, a fig bar, or some sort of carb before their workout, they have less acid reflux symptoms and a better quality workout and more energy with less coffee. It just sounds like witchcraft when I start talking about it.
So let's go back to that. So what's the benefit of an applesauce pack?
Yeah, so everybody teases me because they're like, "Oh, the baby food," and I'm like, "Yes, the baby food." Uh, it's a full serving of fruit, non-perishable, lasts in a bag for 6 months or more, and you'd be surprised how just, like, a little bit of carbs before your workout, I usually prefer more, so most of my bigger guys are gonna need at least 2 applesauce pouches. How much that makes a huge difference in your work, because a lot of times my clients are coming to me and they're like, I hate working out. I hate working out. And usually they're in that phase of life where they've got the little kids, they've got the side job, they're working overtime. They're kind of running their body into the ground. And, they don't have motivation to work out anymore. They're sore, they have an injury, that kind of thing. And the weights are starting to feel heavier, the workouts aren't fun. And when we give them a little bit of carbs before the workout, you would be surprised how much that drastically changes the feeling of the workout. They can push harder, their weights are heavier, they could run further, run longer, and that enjoyment comes back. And then they're more motivated to continue working out, all based off of a little applesauce pouch. And every single one of them comes to me and they're like, I thought you were crazy. And you're right, I am crazy. But, um, it can really make a difference. So it's definitely something to try. You can get them at Costco, Sam's Club, very inexpensively. They work before workouts. They work for recruits or fire control teams, academy instructors at between every evolution. If you get one of those between every evolution, that like hangover-y, I feel like garbage feeling will be significantly reduced later in the day.
I'm assuming there must be a lot of sugar in that. Is that good natural
Not
sugars
added.
or yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
great
Yeah.
question. So now and I don't know how Canada is, but I know in the United States that our labels now clarify whether the sugar is added sugar or natural sugar. And I'm not worried about natural sugar. Anybody who's telling you you need to be worried about natural sugar is probably a little too extreme for what I need them to be. Um, but the added sugar is what we're trying to focus on reducing. And most of the applesauce pouches that I've seen have no added sugar because they're so sweet to begin with. They don't really need it. But also keep in mind, I don't hate added sugar during high intensity work. I'm not a fan of added sugar when you're sitting in the day room watching football, right? It comes down to the context of timing. And a lot of like rehab units, canteens is what we call them down here, like the snack trucks or whatever, will ask me, oh, what's the healthy options to put on the canteens? And healthy is not the right term, in my opinion, because healthy and performance enhancing are two different things. So, performance enhancing is high sodium, potentially high sugar. So, you can keep doing work and stay well hydrated. But those two things, again, sitting in the day room, they're not going to be good long term from a health perspective. So, it all comes down to it depends.
Makes sense. So I've been on a bit of a craving, I guess I should say,
Sure.
for dates.
Oh, interesting.
What are they like for health wise? I know they're packed full of sugar, but also a good natural sugar.
Correct.
What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, dates are a fantastic way to sweeten like a lot of like the healthier quote unquote baked goods are going to be sweetened with dates. So there's certainly something you could add in. The dark color is going to be very high in antioxidants, which is important from a cancer prevention and cardiovascular disease prevention or just recovery standpoint. And then they're also very high in fiber, which anybody who follows me on the social media knows I'm the biggest fiber nag in the country because I would argue most of my first responder diets are very low in that. So that would be a great way to get, you know, more fiber in.
So talking about fiber, then let's switch gears. What would a first spawner listening right now? How could they incorporate more fiber into their life without hating their life?
Sure. But, honestly, it's not that bad. It's just people. So think about it. When your lunch has been delayed 3 hours and you roll up to the Chick-fil-A parking lot to get lunch, like, are you getting a salad? You're getting the biggest French fry, possibly the biggest milkshake, anything to just like quench the feeling of like excessive hunger and excessive stress, right? So fiber is, the fruits and the veggies go to the wayside when people get really tired and really cranky. So the average first responder food log that I see has 5 to 10 grams of fiber per day in it. And we need closer to 25 grams for women, 30 to 38 for men. And when we get more strategic, like what do I pack in the go bag? What do I get for fast food? What do I meal prep? It's actually not terribly hard to hit fiber numbers. You just have to be we have to change what you've been doing for a while because you just haven't been thinking about it, if that makes sense. So from a fast food standpoint, like your Chipotle's, your Cavas, Cadobas, where you can get like beans, lentils, whole grain rices, um, the extra veggies, extra salsas. It's actually pretty easy to get fiber from those types of restaurants. Uh, your go bags, actually, applesauce has a little bit of fiber. It's not a ton, but we'll count it. That's it bars, like dried fruit, your dates, regular dried fruit, fruit cups. I know everybody's like, ew, fruit cups. Those actually are really good. They're just a little bit of grape juice and some mandarin oranges or peaches, and they work really well. What else am I thinking about? Nature's Bakery fig bars, RX bars have some fiber. So it's actually relatively easy if you learn what to pack. It's just again, people just need those shifts.
You mentioned the RX bar, and I've heard lots of good things about that. Is there a protein bar out there you would like hands down support? Maybe not necessarily a brand per se if you're not comfortable with that, but what you're looking for in a protein bar that would really help a first spawner.
Sure. I'm not big time enough to really be sponsored by any products yet. Maybe my dream is Costco.
It's coming.
Uh,
Yeah.
but in any case, the RX bars are kind of like they have a pretty even amount of most of the macronutrients, carbs, fat, and protein. They're pretty even all around. So they're okay for like more of a post workout or just like a day-to-day snack. Your Fig bars, your Cliff bars are going to be 40 grams of carb, next to no protein, perfect for pre-workout. Your protein bars that are going to be closer to like 20 grams, you want to leave for after. And the reason for after is most people, most firefighters, if they have a protein bar that's really high in protein, 20, 30 grams, they get gassy. County gyms, they're small, like we don't need that kind of chemical warfare. So in that case, we want to save that for after. And some of the brands that like, I like Quest bars. Like that's the only one that I found that I didn't like hate it
Yeah, those are good.
from a texture standpoint. Some of my clients like Aloha bars or Think bars. Uh, and those are the higher protein options relative to like RX is somewhere in the middle. Aloha might actually be as well. And then your Cliff bars, Fig bars, those are more of your pre-workout or intra-workout, intra-evolution option.
Is there a certain protein level that we should be striving for as first responders on a day-to-day basis? Is there like a target, or is it different for every single person?
It is different for every person, but there's a target that can be utilized for a person to relatively easily figure it out without well, I prefer you be supervised because the execution's the hard part, right? So for protein, we go for athletic populations, which is 0.7 to 1 gram per pound. So for a 200-pound firefighter, that's around 140 to 200 grams of protein. It's a pretty big range, right? Um, so you would stay on the lower end if your goal is weight maintenance or muscle gain, because at that point, you're going to be in a calorie maintenance or calorie excess. And because your body has enough calories, it's not going to try and steal amino acids from muscle. It's not going to try and break down muscle as much. So you don't need to feed protein as high. So we focus more on carbs so that you can push harder in the gym, right? So you can get more muscles, more gains. Now, if you're on the higher end when you're in a deficit, so most people around January, right? Everybody's kind of cutting weight or they're too bloated, whatever. Then we would pull the calories down and pull the protein up because you may steal it, the lack of calories, you're trying to pull it from muscle. So we overfeed protein a little bit to make sure that you're not stealing as much from muscle, right? So hopefully that makes sense.
100%. Yeah, I've definitely increased my protein over the last, say, 6 months or so. It was probably one of the things I was lacking the most, and I'd never really realized it until I started tracking it.
Yes. Yes. What did you end up using, like a MyFitnessPal or something like that?
Uh, to track it?
Yeah.
Nope. Just that's was actually going to be a
Manually.
question. Yeah, manually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Manually. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what my engineers used to do. They would like show up with Excel sheets of their macros. And I'm like, where do you find the time?
Yeah, no doubt. Is there
Yeah,
a suggestion you would have for tracking that for somebody who's
sure.
listening right now? Yeah.
Yeah. So tracking, I used to love MyFitnessPal, but then they put everything behind a paywall. And in my experience, like first responders don't typically stay on MyFitnessPal for like a year. They might stick to it for a month or two and then fall off. So unless then paying $70 a year is not going to make the math ain't math in there. So Calorie Counter by Fat Secret, it's a mouthful, but it has a similar interface. It has the barcode scanner, which makes everything a little bit easier, and it's free. So, and when I have clients work with me, they can actually share their diary and I can stalk them, which is very helpful.
Cool. So you could do things like dates though, or does it just has to be barcode scannable
No, you can
items?
do dates and
Yeah,
yeah, the barcode scanner is
whatever.
just nice, especially for first responders, because like sometimes there is a necessity for packaged food because if you get stuck on a gas leak for 4 hours and you have no snacks, it's not going to be good when you get back to the station. So the barcode scanner can make it a little easier, but you can certainly just put regular foods in.
So I was challenged. Coffee was my primary energy
Hmm.
source that I
Hmm.
thought was my energy source for
Yes, sure,
years.
sure. That's fair.
Water was something I drank once a blue moon. Now I drink water like it's going out of style. It's in my system
Yeah,
all the time.
great.
How important is hydration for our body, our cells, everything like that? And what should we be
Yeah.
aiming for in water intake, especially as first spawners?
So there's a lot of different ways that you could track this. Like some people do X amount of ounces per, like an ounce per pound or something like that. I like to go with the Institute of Medicine standard, which is 90 for women and about 125 ounces per day for men. Um, and everybody hears that and they're like, oh my God, I'm going to drown. Like it's a lot of water, but that doesn't mean that it has to all be water. In fact, coffee counts. So your coffee that you were talking about, it definitely counts towards it. The cap is at about 250 to 300 milligrams of caffeine from that coffee. So, like I said, once it gets over about 25 ounces ish of coffee, um, then it might have a little bit more of a diuretic effect. So, basically, what happens with coffee is that caffeine in general, caffeine at a certain amount, 250 to 300 or more, or actually more than 300, can actually cause you to pee more, particularly in the first hour. For those lower numbers of caffeine, you actually replace it with the water you just drank. So it evens out over the course of the day. So that's a long-winded answer to say that coffee certainly can count. Even sodas count. Um, not that I'm saying you should be drinking full sugar sodas left and right. But if you're worried that you're dehydrated, I had a friend who had hyperemesis. So she was very, very sick when she was pregnant. And our nurses told her she wasn't hydrating because she was only able to tolerate Diet Coke. Like, that doesn't even make sense when it comes out of your mouth. You know what I mean? So your sodas certainly do count. Your teas, your water, your flavored waters, your seltzer waters, all of those things count towards hydration. So you can actually hit that number a little faster than you think.
So you've mentioned the milligrams in or ounces. I think you were talking about coffee. So what
Mhm.
is that like? Is that a 2 cups, 3 cups? Like what? How would you picture that?
Um, yeah, so I like to say it in ounces because I have seen firefighter mugs and they vary drastically from station to
Yeah,
station and from mug to mug. So that's why I say about 25 ounces. So that's about two of the 12 ounce, like the bigger firefighter
gotcha.
coffee mugs,
Yep.
right? So those certainly count. That would mean you would drink two of those bigger mugs and you probably won't see you won't get dehydrated from it. It's actually counting towards your hydration. Just keep in mind, you may pee a little more in the first hour. So that's more of a concern. Like you're doing a burn day and you haven't drank any other water, you've just down coffee and you're just going straight into stoking or instructing. And that, which, when we look at the evidence, several studies have suggested that 9 out of 10 firefighters show up to planned trainings and drills dehydrated. So, you know, that's a concern.
I had two syncopated episodes that
Mm,
I can relate back to. Well, overwhelm and stress,
yeah.
but dehydration was a major factor in that as well. Um, and I was on coffee. And that's it. That's all I was
Yep.
on. Right. So yeah.
Yep.
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 I
So
experienced it.
yeah, totally. And almost every firefighter has, because it's hard. You can't be perfect all the time, right? Like there are just some shifts, there are some days, there are some weeks, such as years sometimes, that just catch you off guard. So let's talk about what we should do if we're off guard, right? So have you heard of like oral rehydration solutions or like the electrolyte packets, Grip Drop, Liquid IV, Fluid Tactable? Um, so the one thing that a lot of people are really surprised to hear is that I actually recommend electrolyte products with sugar. And the reason for that is Grip Drop, Liquid IV, Fluid Tactical ORS. These oral rehydration solutions were developed for the cholera epidemic, where they didn't have access to IV fluids in the quantities needed. So they needed an oral option. So these products have half the sugar and double the sodium of sports drink and have randomized controlled trials to show that they are as effective as IV fluids for mild to moderate dehydration. And in the fire service, in the academy, we know we don't always have time or it's going to take a lot of paperwork to start a line on someone, right? So these products are going to be cheaper and a little bit more, well, obviously a lot bit more portable for our first responders. Now, the reason they are formulated with half the sugar and double the sodium is that little bit of glucose gives you an extra entry point on the cell for fluid to get in. So, when you're getting rehydrated, sodium is important, right? So, firefighters, most of you guys know that sodium is an electrolyte that you lose through sweat and you need to replace it, right? Or you're going to struggle on the fire ground. And sodium helps passively diffuse water across the cell membrane. But if you just have sodium and no sugar, you lose access to the sodium glucose cotransporter, which binds to sodium. then it binds to glucose, and then water can follow. So you see 2 to 3 times as fast rehydration with a product with about 10 to 15 grams of sugar. So this kind of flies in the face of the products like Element, Fire Salt, the sugar-free versions of Drip Drop, sugar-free versions of Liquid IV, right? And a lot of my firefighters are buying those products because they think they're healthier. But healthy is not, the foreground is not healthy, right? Really high intensity hot places, they're not healthy places, right? If you want to maintain your performance for prolonged periods of time in that intensity, we need sugar and sodium in large quantities or medium quantities. So those are the products we want to keep on hand.
So we're talking a lot about firefighters who are doing a lot of heavy work,
Mhm,
police, fire, whatever that is, sweating
mhm.
like crazy, doing a lot of physical work. But as you move up the ranks, you do less and less of that.
Yes,
So
you
I'm
know by
assuming,
experience.
yes, I'm assuming salt and sugar and all that stuff you don't want to have as much as you were when you're active as a firefighter.
On the line.
Any thoughts
Totally.
there? Any thoughts there?
Absolutely, and I appreciate you saying that because I am seeing a lot of, like, these TikTok bros telling, like, 9 to 5ers, which I guess you can kinda count chiefs as such at a certain point. Once you're in that air-conditioned office,
Yep.
you know,
Sitting, sitting,
it's
sitting.
sitting, computers, meetings, computers, meetings. Um, they're telling these people that they need, like, 5 liquid IVs a day or, like, scoops of Celtic sea salt or they're not hydrating. And what we're actually seeing is so electrolytes, we have to look back at this. Electrolytes conduct electricity in your body. They help your muscles move, right? But you are the importance of electrolytes are for replacement due to large losses through sweat, urine, sometimes vomit if you're really sick, right? Um, and if you're not losing any electrolytes and you're just loading up on them, 5 liquid IVs a day, we're seeing people with cardiac issues, like cardiac incidents from overdoing the electrolytes and not having significant losses. So while 3 to 5 liquid IVs, 3 to 5 drip drops during an 8-hour fire suppression, multiple burn evolutions, like 6 burn evolutions, um, yeah, then you're gonna need 3 to 5 of them. But when you're sitting in an air-conditioned vehicle or in the command post,
Mm,
you don't need that many.
yeah, yeah. Interesting. How about I've heard lots of things about creatine lately. What's your thoughts on creatine? A good thing, a bad thing? Somebody should be cautious of? What's your thoughts there?
If there was any supplement I was going to recommend a first responder, it would be creatine
Mm.
monohydrate.
Oh, nice.
Um,
Yep.
so my friend Annette Zapp recently helped write a
Mhm.
paper called excuse me, I think it was Nutrition or Creatine Considerations for Firefighters. And it's in nerd language, but it goes into detail on creatine use for firefighters. And I will summarize it here. But creatine monohydrate is for strength and power. Firefighters are strength and power athletes, right? Forcible entry, ladder raise, victim drag, just picking up EMS equipment, like all of those things are fueled that first 6 seconds by essentially creatine. And an interesting thing that we're now finding with creatine is that it also promotes brain health and stress management, and it can help reduce mental fatigue in sleep deprived populations, aka first responders, right? So, uh, not only do you see the strength and power benefit, but also the mental cognition benefit, right? And the dose that we recommend is 5 grams per day of creatine monohydrate in powder, capsule, or gummy form every day for forever. So you don't cycle on and off, you just keep taking it. Timing doesn't really seem to matter, though maybe before bedtime might help a little with sleep and recovery. But the biggest side effect is GI, like just some GI. Eh. Um, it's kind of a sandy substance. It can sit in the stomach. Um, and really, it's usually at the larger doses. So I don't know if you've ever heard of like a loading dose for creatine. Yeah. So a
You're like
loading
lifting and
dose,
stuff, right?
yeah. So it's
Yep.
usually for people who are new to creatine, right? So creatine takes, if you take it at 5 grams a day and you've never taken it before, you're not going to see benefit for 3 to 4 weeks. So you're trying to fully saturate your muscles with creatine so that you have that extra energy in the first 6 seconds of movement. And with that, like some people are like they want the instant gratification, which that would never be firefighters, right? They want to see it in 7 days. So if you want to see the benefits in 1 week instead of 3 to 4 weeks, we do 25 grams per day for 7 days, and then we go to the maintenance protocol of 5 grams per day. Now, people think, oh, well, I'll just take 25 grams all at once. Wrong. Your stomach is going to feel like crap. It is going to feel like you just drank sand. So you actually have to spread that 5 times throughout the day. And how many first responders are remembering to take something 5 times throughout the day? None of us. None of us can. Most of us can't remember to take one thing throughout the day. So um, it it's not typically something I recommend because there's a higher risk for GI issues, and the chances of people remembering to take the dose that's recommended. But from a safety standpoint, not a whole lot of concerns.
Water retention was kind of one of the side effects that some
Mhm.
people can experience. Is that true? Or
Yeah, so water
yeah.
retention is a actual benefit of creatine monohydrate. So in the 90s, we thought that creatine would cause rhabdo or dehydration, and more recent research has completely debunked that. They actually have found that, especially in a couple studies in athletes, specifically basketball, that those athletes were better hydrated, saw a lower risk of injuries when they were taking creatine. So you may feel a little bit like puffier. And a lot of my first responders like that because they're like, my chest and my arms feel super jacked. And I'm like, you're welcome. Uh, some of my females, they're a little bit more nervous about it. It's not really something we can prevent. Like, sometimes you'll see like these pink creatines marketed to women, like creatine with no bloat. No, it's not worth your money in that case. But yes, it's actually a benefit for that water retention. Some other myths are like, will it cause hair loss? We don't have any evidence for it causing hair loss. Will it cause rhabdo? Uh, More recent research has pretty much debunked that. It actually may be protective against rhabdo. So
Awesome. Yeah, I've been probably 2 months on it now. So it's a new
great.
thing for me. So yeah, one
Mhm.
scoop. I'm not sure. I'm gonna check and see if that's
Probably 5 grams.
yeah.
It's usually almost every brand does 5 grams.
Okay, cool, cool. So I'm very curious. What would be the biggest myth in nutrition, especially with the population of first responders, that you would like to bust? Like, what was there something out there like,
There's so
oh man, everyone talks about this, and I would just want to set the record straight.
Oh god, there's so many of them. I have 2 of them. We'll start with the easy one first, I think the easy one. The greens powders, have you seen the greens powders circulating? So AG1 or God, there's so many different ones now. And here's the thing. It's tricky because like objectively for a general population, a structural firefighter who has access to fruit and veggies, they just kind of don't really choose to utilize them, um, or don't work to utilize them, then like a greens powder, I don't really find to be super useful. It's more of a fancy multivitamin. And they'll say, oh, it's got 11 billion different fruits and veggies and adaptogens and mushrooms and blah in it. But they're not in the therapeutic doses to see the benefits that are claimed on the label. So that's important to know. If it has scraps of lion's mane and you need tons of lion's mane, then it's not going to be as effective or even get close to the claim on the label. So it's kind of more of a glorified multivitamin. Now, if you are a wildland firefighter where you're not going to have access to fruits and veggies, if you are a urban search and rescue first responder, especially doing international deployments, and I could see some utilization there. Um, but yeah, it's kind of more of a waste of money, especially considering like AG1, I think is somewhere between 75 and $110 a month for one a day. Yeah, like so for me, that's a week of meal prep, like meal prep service. Somebody made me the fruits and vegetables and had it all ready, and I can heat it and eat it. That's a month of just buying a couple bag salads, right? So that I don't have to do any chopping. So I'd rather you spend the money on convenience when it comes to the veggie powder specifically. Are there cases where it could be utilized? Sure. But I think a lot of first responders take them because there's these crazy claims. Um, and they know that their fruits and veggies are bad, and that's the easy way out. Um, so it's kind of like that, like in the middle kind of place.
What's your second
So,
one?
and then, yeah, the second one. So the second one is more when they're structuring their calories, right? So this time of year, we're talking in January, right? When firefighters are left unsupervised and they want to lose weight, they go on MyFitnessPal or Chronometer or Fat Secret, and they see that there are like 4 options. There's maintain their weight, lose 0.5 pounds a week, lose 1 pound a week, or lose 2 pounds a week. And guess which one the firefighters always choose?
Pounds.
2 pounds a week, right?
Let's do it. Let's
Because
do it.
by the time you're asking the MyFitnessPal for help, you are like, I needed this weight off 3 years ago. So 2 pounds a week, let's go. Um, but what they don't realize is 2 pounds a week slashes your calories down 1,000 calories per day. So what you needed maybe 2,800 to maintain, now you're a firefighter trying to eat 1,800 calories on a 48, 24-hour shift. And I'm going to tell you right now, you are going to be hangry. You're going to be low energy, and you're going to have trouble not binging, especially those 3 calls after midnight. So actually what we're looking for is 0.5 to 1 pound a week max. Eating higher calorie when we're on shift and slightly lower calorie when we're off shift for those who have a busier shift and a slower off day. But if you have like side gigs, active side gigs on your off day, then we need to keep it high too.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I can definitely resonate there.
Yeah, I get it. Like you get
Yeah.
really uncomfortable and you're like, please, someone help. But the problem is it wrecks your consistency. And again, we know in the fire service, it's really easy to be on the plan and off the plan. And when you go extreme, you're probably going to be off the plan a lot faster compared to if I kind of lower the deficit, keep your energy levels high, allow you to have some treats here and there. You stay on it longer, you keep the 20 pounds off, right? Compared to gaining it all back.
Is there any benefits to like the diets such as keto, carnivore, any of those things? Or
Yeah,
I
I
like to
mean,
think of
sure.
things as lifestyles versus a diet, because diets are usually so restrictive, like you say, and then you go so extreme and then you give up and you gain it all back, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
create a
Yep.
healthy lifestyle. But keto
Totally.
definitely sheds the pounds for sure.
Sure. Well, so that's part of the reason is because you're losing glycogen. So the first 3-ish weeks of a ketogenic diet, from someone eating a standard, normal, they eat carbs diet to going keto, in the first week or two, you're basically starving your body of glycogen. So you're not feeding your body carbs, and your brain prefers carbs. So it's trying to steal it from your muscles and your liver. And that also comes with water. So carbs or glycogen, links of carbohydrates, come with a little bit of water. So what we see is, depending on the size of the person, somewhere between 7 and 15 pounds of water weight, glycogen weight, lost in that 1 to 3 weeks of keto. So people think they're losing weight super quickly, they're less bloated, like they think it's magical. But here's the thing with keto is, while the higher fat diets can keep you more full, they they're very hard to stick to. Like, no beer at your captain's retirement, no cupcake at your kid's birthday party, and it just gets really hard to stick to. And another mistake that I see first responders do with keto is, what they don't realize is you also have to limit your protein to a degree. And I'm not the keto expert, but it's usually like 70% fat, 20%, 25% protein, and 5% carb. I think that math adds up. And if you go over 25% protein, your body can do something called gluconeogenesis, where it converts protein to carbs. So you don't actually stay in true ketosis. Some firefighters don't care about that, but the ones who are really nitty gritty, like, they just don't realize it. So it's really hard to do a high protein keto without accidentally converting. But the reality is like, I've been working with firefighters since 2017. There was that big keto trend, 2015, 2017. I know one firefighter who stayed on the diet longer than 3 years, and it was primarily because their spouse was diagnosed with a terminal condition, and keto was recommended, and he only did it for her. You know, it's very hard to stick to otherwise.
Healthy lifestyle, right? A balance of
Yeah.
everything. Balance of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want a diet that, like, we have evidence for in firefighters, it's actually Mediterranean. So I don't know if you're familiar with that
Yep.
diet or not. Yeah.
Maybe
So the
share a little
diet
bit
of the
about that.
Mediterranean.
Yeah.
Yeah. Diet of the Mediterranean
Sounds
is
very nice.
more fish. Yes, it sounds very fancy, right?
Yes.
So more fish, more fruits and veggies, more legumes, less meats, a little bit of alcohol if you want it, but the serving sizes are way less than what first responders typically go for. And yeah, so really a high emphasis on the fruits and veggies and seafood, and olive oil as well. So we see significant improvements for firefighters specifically, but also general population, in cholesterol, in blood pressure, in type 2 diabetes, and weight loss. So the Mediterranean diet like fixes a lot of those issues that first responders have, like the high risk for cardiovascular disease, high risk for cancer, primarily because that diet's very high in antioxidants. It's also very high in fiber and very high in polyunsaturated fats, the omega-3s from the fish and the seafood. So, and Dr. Kales is, I think he's out of Harvard. He actually has survival diet or firefighter survival diet, Mediterranean style. It's a whole website where he talks about how to implement the Mediterranean diet on a first responder shift.
Oh, I'll add that to the show notes here.
Mhm.
You mentioned olive oil, and I think that's one of those superfoods that everyone talks about. But how
Mhm.
about, well, I use avocado oil and olive oil. Used
Sure.
to use vegetable oil and a lot of seed oils. What are your thoughts on those? Because I think a lot of people still use a lot of those, and I know
Yes,
they're
it's an
not great.
unpopular opinion, but it's not
Yes.
an opinion because I have evidence to back it up. So here's the thing. Seed oils, canola oils, vegetable oils. We actually have solid evidence that they actually reduce incidence of cardiovascular disease and sudden cardiac death.
They
Um,
reduce?
People will be like, sorry,
Reduce?
reduce,
Hmm,
yes, because
okay.
they are high in the polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fats, relative to things like coconut oil or the biggest concern is saturated fat from like animal products, dairy, and then also trans fats, which we're trying to pretty much eliminate that from the food supply. There are regulations in place to continue to reduce the trans fat intake. But yeah, because canola oils and vegetable oils are high in polyunsaturated fats, we see a reduction in LDL and an improvements in HDL in diets that are higher in it. Now, people hear that and they think that I'm telling them to guzzle canola oil for breakfast. And that is not what I'm saying. I mean, when we're talking about oils, and listen, I prefer olive oil for low heat or vinaigrettes, and then canola oil or avocado oil for high heat. So when you're getting a nice sear, so that you're not having the oil disintegrate in the pan or smoke in the pan, it's called the smoke point. And olive oil smoke point is only up to 350. And most of my first responders, when you're trying to get that really nice char, um, we want to go with a higher heat oil like avocado oil or canola oil. So now the other thing I get is, well, the seed oils are so high in our food products. When people cut out like ultra processed foods, they're cutting out seed oils. And then people are like, look, it's the seed oils, they're healthier. They cut out ultra processed food. They cut out a lot of garbage. They cut out all the chips. They cut out all the baked goods. They cut out and they feel better because they're actually eating food. Right. So it's a really long tangent because there's so many different people out there who are like demonizing these foods when in reality, if you're including canola oil like a tablespoon or two into your food during the day, it's not the end of the world. Um, but I do lean more towards the avocado oil, the olive oils, and that kind of thing.
So in a bag of chips, you're looking at a lot of nasty stuff in there as well as
Mhm.
those seed oils or the canola oils or the vegetable oils. But just a little bit of vegetable oil and scrambling your eggs or whatever like that, it's not a game
Yeah.
changer in your health.
Yeah. Because
Yeah,
think
okay.
about it too.
Yeah.
If you're at a station and all there is canola oil and olive oil or vegetable oil and olive oil because they make cake or whatever. I don't know. If you're heating up something really hot, I want you to use the canola oil, not the olive oil. You're actually going to see a higher risk for carcinogens with the olive oil because it's going to smoke, right? So, a lot of these things on social media, it's really difficult for first responders. It's actually also difficult for the dietitians to keep up. But it's difficult because it's like these things are demonized, and then they're like, "What the heck do I eat?" you know. And listen, if you've cut out seed oils and you feel better, keep doing it. But when that's the first thing told to a first responder that they need to eliminate 95% of their diet and they're not told how to fix it, that's where I start to have a problem.
Makes sense. Okay. So if you had to share one golden tip on nutrition for the first responder listening right now, something that's just gonna like if their life is not doing well in their food and lifestyle, where could they
Mhm.
start today? What would be the number one
Sure.
thing you'd think?
Sure. So I like to think of like first responder wellness kind of like a ladder, right? And a lot of times when I hear first responder wellness professionals or just wellness pros in general, they see the high cancer risk, the high cardiovascular disease risk, and they're like, holy crap, this is really bad. And their diets are really horrible. So we need to go vegan. We need them to go vegetarian, which how many first responders do you think want to go vegan or vegetarian?
Very
Actually,
small, very small amount.
very small. At least on my side of the country.
Yeah.
I
know more
this meat and potatoes country.
more vegetarian first responders, but vegans, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Not as
No,
many.
you don't want to. And I'm not knocking that diet, right? It's just actually the union did a study on it several years ago about 3,500 firefighters, and they compared a bunch of different diets without the names. And the vegan diet was the lowest, least likely to be followed by first responders. And if you're not going to follow the diet, it's not going to work, right? So the vegan, they tell them go vegan. They tell them to eat one meal a day on a 24, 48-hour shift. And it's like asking them to get to a second-story window without a ladder, right? There's no rungs or steps in place to get them to the hypothetical perfect diet, right? So what I like to do is I start with the first 3 rungs before we jump up the window, because as I work you up there, then you have backups in place when that room flashes over and you slide back down the ladder. And that flashover could be a divorce. It could be a back injury that puts you on light duty. It could be medic training, right? So those 3 rungs include healthier fast food, a packed go bag with non-perishable options that'll last 6 months or more, and frozen meals in place so that you have those things as backup. So if you get that pie in the sky feeling of doing meal prep and all the food goes bad in your fridge, you have something backed up. And I think I talked about some of the go bag options earlier. So your fig bars, your Cliff bars, your protein bars, your tuna packets, chicken packets, the That's It bars or dried fruit, applesauce pouches, right? Just load up with applesauce pouches. Have that go bag stocked with like 6 different options. Because if you only put one option in there and you're not in the mood for it, you're going right to 7-Eleven for its keto. Like I know what's going to happen here. So have that go bag stocked. Have some healthier freezer options that are higher in fiber and higher in protein in your freezer. And yes, they're going to come with more sodium. But if you're an active first responder, sodium's like not the hill I die on. I want to focus on other things first. And then your fast food, we're trying to get a protein and a veggie when you can every time. And a veggie is not a hush puppy. It is, the side salad. I'll take a fruit cup, those kinds of things. So everybody says, well, oh, Megan, like, why are you recommending these like not healthy things? They're better than Grubhub. You're going to spend double the money, get double the sodium, double the fat, double the portion compared to, oh, I have something right here in my freezer. Right? It's a better bad decision, as our strength coach at Fairfax would say. And that's what we're going for.
Makes sense. You're not saying fast food is the best diet you should have, but when a pinch, as a first responder, when you don't have any time and you're under the gun, a healthy option for fast food.
Yeah, 80% of the time. Because we're all going to have those days like where you're just done, and you just want the fast food burger and you just want to eat it in silence, very fastly. So it's okay to do it occasionally, right? But also keep in mind, I've worked with and these are first responders who are stuck, right? And when I talk to the healthier peer fitness trainers, first responders, they're like, well, they just need to suck it up. They just need to eat chicken and rice. Well, they're not eating chicken and rice because they're in the middle of the divorce. They're homeless technically because their spouse kept the house. They're in a financial pinch. Okay. They split their pension, they split their 401k. They are in a hole. So if you're hearing this and you're like, I am in the hole, then I've actually had firefighters lose 20 pounds on fast food choices. It's possible. You just have to make the decision that you don't really want to make 80% of the time. And you can still see results. And then, once you're ready, you get that apartment. Then we can talk about maybe meal prep yourself, or we can look at your budget, see how much you're spending in fast food, and maybe a meal prep company is actually the right fit. Your Factor, your Mighty Meals, that kind of thing.
Love it. So as we come to a close, Megan, is there something that you wish I asked you that I haven't asked you yet that you would want to share with the world?
No, I think we covered a lot.
We did.
Covered a lot of stuff. I'm trying to think.
Awesome.
We did hydration. We did go bag. Yeah, I think we creatine even. That's a big one. No, we covered a lot.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
So tell our listener today a little bit how they can learn more about you and maybe connect with you if they need further support through Rescue RD, anything like that, and maybe some links.
Sure. Yep. So Rescue RD Debunking.com is where you can find information on coaching services or department services. And I'm running a special for my workshops until the end of February, so February 28th. So if you book a 2025 Fueling Fire workshop, which is a nutrition or wellness workshop, then you'll get Quick Bites for free. And Quick Bites is 12 10-minute in-services that you can put into Vector Target Solutions or just on an internal site to remind your first responders to continue eating healthy. And that's a $1,300 value for free. So the workshops have been really popular. They basically train peer fitness trainers and leadership or just regular first responders on how to eat healthier, sleep better, work out better on shift when they're tired and cranky.
Anything big in 2025 in store for you? I know you just had a baby, so that's
Yeah.
life-changing. That's big. Anything
That's a big one.
Yeah, anything else?
That's a big one. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's already looking like a lot of travel. I think about 8 quotes out for workshops. So, and that's from Texas to Washington to
Nice.
Rhode Island. So I think there's going to be a lot of travel in store for me, which is exciting to see more firefighters across the country. So big plans for 2025.
About the great work. I love following you on social media. You're always putting out fantastic content. So thanks for sharing that with the world.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for
Awesome.
having me.
All right, everyone. Hope you had a pen and a paper because this was tons of things you could jot down and help to improve your own life and your own wellness and nutrition. So until next time, stay well. All right, that's a wrap.
Yay. Wow, you were like, that was great. I feel like we gave a lot of information.
Thank you for tuning in to Beneath the Helmet. We hope that this podcast has provided you with valuable insights into the world of firefighters' health and wellness. Remember, caring for your physical, mental, and spiritual well-being is crucial to achieving optimal performance. Join us next time on Beneath the Helmet for more inspiring conversations. Until then, stay well.